一开始我可能还是先稍微说明一下，我们今天为什么要办这个像 igdshare 这样活动。对，因为我们在去年 TGS 跟去年 EDK 的2场参访回来之后，就发现说，在国外已经有看到，就是很厉害的台湾学生在国外已经有办法去入围一些，就是我们一直有在关注的奖项，然后他们做出来的作品确实都很屌。那就是想说，借着我们有办分享会这样的机会，让台湾的开发者跟就是在海外这个奋斗的这些台湾学子，就是稍微互相认识一下。那以后希望大家可以继续保持联系。那他们有一些人可能是大学以后才出去台湾，才从台湾出去，就是去美国留学。有些人可能是在美国就是从小长大的。那但是无论如何，我觉得大家看到东方的脸孔，都还是有一种比较亲切的感觉。那看到他们做出来的作品，我觉得大家还是心理上会有一种怎么讲？我觉得会就是情感会比较强一点。对，那就是我们在 IndieK 的每一年遇到的，就是华人脸孔也是越来越多。我们2011年去，然后到去年算是去了第3次，然后就去年看到就是很多，不是很多啦，但至少比起前2年是多非常多，就是看到就是华人脸孔，然后大部分里面是台湾的。对，那就是希望说，这些人，我们就是可以用社群的力量去跟他们接触，而不是说他们出去国外之后，然后我们其实也不知道他们去哪间公司上班，我们也不知道他去念哪里，然后我们可能不知道说他其实有些作品有获得不错的成绩，或是有不错的曝光，然后我们自己人都不晓得。对，那我还是希望就是借这个机会跟大家稍微介绍一下。那在正式跟他们做连线之前，我还是稍微做一下这个基本的。这个就是对他们作品的简介。那我先秀，因为里面有一款游戏是我已经有拿到 demo 版，然后另外一款是就是我们在 EDK 现场玩的影片跟照片，然后稍微秀一下那个，先秀 EDK 这一款啊。对，就是这一款叫做 Pico。对，然后他们是。如果我没有记错的话，他们也是卡内基梅隆 ETC 的学生，就是那个 Entertainment Technology Center 的学生。对，然后其中有一个组员是台湾过去的，他应该在美国就是在美国念大学。我稍微查一下他的履历，他好像是念 Berkeley， 然后又直接念到卡内基梅隆的研究所，所以算很强。对，然后这款是他负责做主设计的游戏。那大家可以看到，其实这个荧幕上面看起来底是黑的，可是其实它下面是有一条有没有那个 Windows 的那个就是桌面的工具列，然后它画面上其实是有不同的这个视窗，可是它其实是同一款游戏，你要想办法把视窗相关联的地方接起来，那把路线接起来，像这边看到这个楼梯可能是断掉的，然后你可以把视窗重新排列之后，把楼梯接起来。然后就人可能可以从其中一个画面移到另外一个画面去这样子。对，然后我可以秀一下我们在 EDK 现场卡关的部分。对吧？就是它这4个门，其实我看不出来哪一个是终点，所以就是怎么接都不对。然后我看到还有很多就是其他路人在旁边挑战，然后都一直没有办法过。对，所以今天也许稍微晚一点可以看他们怎么 demo 这一款。
所以它那一个一个真的是上面的那
对
个视窗。
而且我还有特别，我就是在之前跟他做 tech test 的时候，我特别先问他说，你这个东西是不是用假造假出来的？就反正 Windows 的框大家可以画。然后不是的，这5个是这6个是独立的视窗。所以我还蛮好奇他之后要，譬如说怎么做到，譬如说可能其他的平台上面之类的。对，所以这款蛮有趣的。
坐在手机上就要开手机在那边接。
对，就是你是一个大平板，然后想办法直接去动小高光，还是说你要5只手机一起接？我觉得这还蛮有趣的，大家可以看一下。对，然后等一下可以看 demo。 那我等一下会实际试玩的是那个 Museum of Simulation Technology， 就是我们在 TGS Sensor One 里面碰到的，第一次看到一个作品。对，然后先跟大家提一下，就是这款作品在几个礼拜前已经确定有入围 IGF 的学生组。那我听说国外有一些人私下在谈是这款好像赢面还蛮大的，就大家可以期待一下。GDC 也没有多久了。好，那稍微变形，大家就先看一下。没有声。
先有这样。
哦，不错，鼻音很大声，用鼻音。
就是因为视差的原因，看到的东西是变化的属性，你从小就看到，
然后像这边的话，就是这边很明显人跳不上去，那你就是要想办法搬箱子。对啊，这一关他是在教你说你要去观察说哪些看起来不能动的东西其实是可以动的。我们要怎么推倒蒙娜丽莎呢？哎，我错边啦！
推倒，
又缩小，不行，丢远一点。没有用。好，重来。因为，好，这样，不要转正。好。然后它就是你可以把物体放开的时机，就是它在背后，它在这个物体背后一定还有另外东西把它挡住，就是它不能是完全背对天空或是没有边际的地方。对。 好啊，你也上不去，再捡一颗上来，这样总可以了。好了，这个接下来这个就非常容易卡关啦，因为
会死。
好，再对另外一个问题。
哦。
啊，再见了。
哇，傻笑。太失败了，
糟糕，
剩一个。好，再大一点，再大一点。
糟糕，不行了，
这应该是卡关了。
哇，还有记录点。
太大了。哦，应该从那边坐楼梯哦。
不行，
问题是只有一个啊。
3个应该够了，这角度不太对，
太小了。
不行。
有没有很高？我觉得等一下还是看到什么这一关好。 最后一次，再挑战一次造大桥。
我卡住。
不行，拿不起来。好吧 ，anyway， 大概就是这样游戏。卡关卡太久。因为我刚被敲了，我要确定一下。那这个因为2位开发者都上线了，那我现在就把他们连起来，等我一下。Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so everybody is online now. So who do you want to start first? Who want to start first?
Probably the oldest.
Oh, what? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, maybe Josephine and Romain, you can start first.
Sure.
Yeah, just showing your game and talk. First, maybe do some self-introductions.
Okay, can you actually hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So hi, I'm Josephine. I graduated from the Carnegie Mellon's Entertainment Technology program, so Master of Entertainment Technology, last May, and before that I worked at Google. And my role on this game is I'm the lead designer.
Hi everyone, I'm Romain, and I also graduated from the Entertainment Technology Center of Carnegie Mellon in May, and I've been the main programmer on this project, and only actually programmer on this project.
And we actually have 2 artists also working with us, but they couldn't make it today.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So how about Albert?
Let's see. Just introduce myself, I guess. I'm currently a student at Entertainment Technology Center at CMU. I did my undergrad at Carnegie Mellon as a CS major, and I actually spent most of my life in Hsinchu, and I went to 实验中学 for high school.
Okay, I see. So does Josephine and Romain, do you guys want to start talking about your games first?
Yeah, we can. Right, so our game is, so it's a cross-platform puzzle adventure game. It's point and click, and so the main idea of our game is that we wanted to break out of the window constraints of the desktop. So we wanted to bring kind of like a new experience that contrasted with the usual like pop-up ads experience, and we wanted to kind of break that and make that into a fun game.
So really our guiding principle in the beginning was just what if pop-ups were, instead of annoying, were actually fun. And that's where we started. And the first iteration we did was all on Post-it notes and on various ways that pop-up could appear on your computer and how annoying it could be. And then from there we decided how to form a game and something that actually would be fun to play around that. So I think can we go ahead and show the demo, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I'm going to screen share.
So it will be on Romain's screen, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the main concept of the game is to try to link windows together, and doing that create a path for Pico to evolve in the level.
Just one note. We actually cannot read the texts very clearly. So, if there's any important message, maybe you want to say it out.
Oh, sure. So in that beginning text, it was just more context, and so we see this one as the tutorial. We want to make sure that people understand. People understand that windows are going to pop up, and you have to line two windows together in order to progress to go forward. So the text just helps with that. So I'll go ahead and read it off as we go along.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now, Pico is an orphan, and so that picture is of him and father. So father is not necessarily his actual biological father, but the father of the church. So there, so he basically says, he had a nightmare. So in that very beginning when he saw the monsters, he had a nightmare. He woke up, and the text, tells you, basically that he had a nightmare, and that then the father's pop-up comes up and he says, Pico, come find me. So now he's going on a quest to find the father. And when he comes into this room, that text that just was on there and you can read basically just says that I need to, like, is father here and I need to get out of this room.
So in this stage, you can move two windows.
Yep.
And so if you notice that once a window doesn't have a border around it, you can't move it anymore. So that's part of the puzzle element.
This level is designed specifically to tell the user that, and sometimes your windows are going to be blocked, and you're going to have to find a way to deal with that.
And so he goes, let me check upstairs. And he said, so there's the key. So it's to let the player know that he needs to bring the key up to unlock the door. But so now it says this key is too heavy. So how are you going to bring the key up if you can't just go up the stairs with it? And so as you'll see, right now the only window you can move is that middle one. So the other two you can't move at all. And these aren't, we made the conscious decision of not faking the windows, so these are actual system windows. Sure, talk about the tagging.
Sure. So to make that game, we had a bit of an issue because there was no game engine that could support multiple windows. So we've had to find an open source game engine whose windowing platform was also open source and cross-platform. And once we found it, so we used a prototyping engine called Angel, and with that we went into the code and just modified it until we could have several windows and have control over how they're displayed, and yeah, pretty much.
Does Angel has anything to do with AngelScript?
No, it's two different things.
Okay.
I think I'm stuck. I'm gonna restart the level.
Yeah, so there is, we do let the player have a way out. Right, so if you want to demonstrate, so if you accidentally close a window, let's say, a warning will pop up that tells you, hey, closing this window might prevent you from helping Pico. Are you sure you want to close this? And you can always restart the level if you're stuck or if you want. So now you close it and you're like, okay, there's nothing here. So what you could do is, the lifeline there is you just restart it. and you can restart the level without having to restart the entire game.
Do you have like any mechanism like using that closing window thing to solve a puzzle?
We've had that on our mind for some time. It didn't make it into our tutorial levels
Okay.
because, but I mean, we have more mechanics than we have in the levels. We just didn't necessarily have the time to create all that we wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was really a demo and a proof of concept because we actually tested this a lot, but prior to testing, we didn't know if this was going to be fun or not. So we built out basically these 3 example levels and had people playtest it and tell us whether or not it was something that they would actually want to play.
Uh-huh.
And that was something that I think with our experience at IndieK that really gave us the affirmation that, oh yes, this is something that's worth building out. And because sometimes you don't know, you think it's a fun and cool game in your head, but when it gets executed, it's not actually that interesting, or maybe it doesn't come across the way you had initially intended. And so I think that model of iterating and launching is something that we definitely did for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, Albert has a question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
How many levels did you have at IndieK? Did you say it was 3?
We have 5 levels at IndieK.
Okay.
The same as here. So we're so after IndieK, we were able to. We realized that people actually really like it, and it kind of pushed us forward. And so we decided to start building more of the game. So right now we're still in development process, but that's why we're only showing the prototype now. But I think we're planning for a release towards the end of this year. And right now we're just building tools and gonna build the levels and make more art and just turn it into a full-fledged game. But yeah.
Yeah. So in our pipeline now, so we want to make this cross-platform in the sense of on a desktop computer. So right now we're trying to make it work also on a Mac because right now it's just Windows PC.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, a level editor so that we can, since now we have the framework of the levels and how we want it to look, just a quick way to execute on it. Can you guys hear us? Is
Yes.
everything?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
And also, so for instance, we realized that this level was really hard, and so we need to build more of a transition between levels.
Yeah.
Because the solution might be clear in our head, but
Yeah, maybe at least like show which door is the actual exit.
Yeah.
right.
I can skip the credits, I think.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we actually were before you guys showed up. Actually, we were talking about like how do you make this work on maybe multiple mobile phones or pads. Yeah, I mean, because the Windows system isn't going to work for those systems, and we think maybe yeah, because actually we actually saw a game from Sensor One and I think it's 2 years ago, and there was a game that actually make you try to figure out the puzzle between like 2 phones, and there's a map you have to like connect them. Yeah, but like that game is like about responsive time and player reactions. Yeah, it's not.
Was it the one where it was like you had to connect the 2 pads and then the thing would crawl to the other phone?
Yeah. And he wanted to make 2 characters because assuming it's a 2-player game and 1 player have one character and the other player have the other character, and they have to make these two characters like kiss each other.
Mm.
Yeah. Sort of.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting.
Yeah. So I mean that's definitely interesting. But right now we're focused on desktop, and having this would be a completely different tech.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're gonna do that right now. So
All right.
I don't know if that Google Tango thing. Maybe I don't. But
Yeah. So like how many levels do you tend to have?
So right now we have set out probably 20.
20?
But those are base, 20 base levels, but yeah, that'll depend because we're gonna build it out in chunks, and like I said, we're gonna iterate them. So something that it could be like 20 main levels and then many levels in between as transition. But right now on our timeline we have 20.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll have the actual Q&A and discussion part after all you show your game. So maybe Albert want to show the museum now.
Oh, okay. Let me just do that screen share thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's working. Okay. Wait, am I a bit loud?
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. So I just wrote down some stuff.
Oh. Okay.
Just,
Okay. You got a slide.
yeah, just because I can't think and talk at the same time.
Okay.
So, okay. So first I'll talk a bit about the game, and then I'll show some parts of the game. So I think you probably went over this. Is during September I went to the Sense of Wonder Night, and what was interesting is that so I went to Sense of Wonder Night there, and then but afterwards there wasn't a lot of feedback from that. If you go on YouTube, there was only 1,000 and something views for the video, and then then in January suddenly there's 1 million views on YouTube. So I thought that was pretty crazy, and I was trying to explain a bit on what happened. So first of all, there's this thing I read that Chris Hecker said that was really interesting. Is basically start marketing as early as possible, because no matter how much you market, there will always be a great portion of people that have never heard about your game, and that's basically what we kind of try to do. But mostly it was just luck. So what we did is we didn't actually do much. So we took the original footage from Sense of Wonder Night and we posted it on Reddit. And the weird thing is, this is the same exact footage from Sense of Wonder Night. But then we actually had something newer, slightly newer for IGF student submissions, but we didn't want to make a new video from that because you had to subtitle everything. And that was really annoying, so we just posted the same video. And for some reason, it went to the top of Reddit. So, for that, interesting facts is, yes, same video as this one night, and also one interesting thing we found out is that a lot of news articles will follow social media instead of the other way around. Because Reddit came first, and then came a bunch of other sites, Kotaku, PC Gamer, etc. So, one thing I was always thinking about when I was creating a game is that right now innovation is probably, in terms of if you want to get your game known, innovation is probably a bit more important than polish or fun. Because, for example, my game that I submitted to IGF and also to Sense of Wonder Night is, if you actually played it, it was a really bad game, to be honest. Because part of the reason is that there's no tutorial, it's really, really buggy, there's no learning curve. In terms of just the game, it would be a bad game, but because I guess some people thought it was innovative, so a lot of people thought it was interesting. So another thing I was trying to get when when I was creating the game is when I played Portal, that time when you first realize that, for example, momentum can go through portals. In other words, when your thinking changes a bit. And I try to model the game after that feeling. So basically, every puzzle in our demo was basically one of those, like, oh wow, I didn't think of that, and now I got it. And another thing we try to do is to create this interesting difference between puzzles and the context of the puzzle. So for example, Perspective is a game that has really interesting puzzles, but it doesn't have very interesting context for the puzzles. So I'll just play my game, and kind of show you what I mean. So actually this is one of the tutorials levels we're working on, but let's just skip to the other level. It's probably more important. Yeah, so for example, I don't know if you've seen this level.
Yeah, I kind of stuck on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the funny part is that
Wait, how do you actually like let the
let the painting fall down?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a bug, and it's that you have to make it small.
What?
You have to make the painting small. It's just weird like that. If you make it big, it's not gonna fall down, but or you can tip it on one of these benches. And then that will,
Alright.
fall down.
Alright.
Yeah. But anyways, the context I was talking about is the puzzle is just making a ramp. The context is that you get out, walk on Mona Lisa's face.
Okay.
In a sense, and somehow that's just kind of funny. Like in another level, this level, the context is you can't just, the puzzle is just to grab something from the sky, but the context is that you grab the moon. And somehow, for some reason, just because the context is so weird, it makes it more funny than it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so another context one is this one. So here there's these just two portals. I was trying to think of a puzzle that would be interesting with portals. So if you make one of them big and one of them small, and then go through one of them, then your own size changes, right? And so I was trying to think of an interesting context for this puzzle to exist in. So for example, what if you made yourself really small, or what if you made yourself really big? And the one I came up with is, okay, that's a bug.
Oh, okay.
I did not see that. Is if you made yourself really big, and you realize that you're standing on a table inside a small box. So that's just kind of the context versus puzzle philosophy that we're trying to have inside our game.
Mm-hmm.
Make it interesting. So should we go into Q&A, or I do have a few more slides, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah, you can go through your slides first. I guess.
Okay.
I mean, you already have it.
I'll just go through some of them quickly. Some of them may be relevant, some of them may be less relevant.
Yeah. Okay.
Some similar games. There's Perspective from Digipen, Scale from Steve Squeak, Tells from Minus Lab. For example, Tells from the Minus Lab also has very interesting context. But more interesting is this is a follow-up. This is a slide for the next slide, which is that we found out later, after the game went a bit viral, is that there are two other games already made that are extremely like our current game.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is Depth from LA Game Space. the other is Tale of Scale by Rakim. And actually, Tale of Scale is almost exactly the same, except that he made it in 7 days during a game jam.
Okay.
So what's interesting though is that I emailed him immediately because I was like, oh, I'm really sorry about this, and then he was really nice about it, and he was like, the important thing is the puzzles you came up with and not the mechanics. And I was really glad that he was so nice about it.
So he actually made the game before you.
Yeah, well, I had my first version actually came out a few days. As it's the first version I built during as a 2-week assignment for a class.
Okay.
That you can see in these screenshots. It actually came out a few days before the game jam he did, but he posted to the web first before I did. So
I see.
It was actually surprisingly, when you look at it, we came up with the ideas in about the same 2 weeks, which is really weird. Yeah, it's kind of like Darwin and the evolution thing. So the reason actually I ended up polishing my really bad 2-week assignment is that during the summer I didn't get a summer internship. So I spent another 4 weeks on it. So in total, I spent about 6 weeks for the version I submitted to Sense of One Night, and which was really surprising when I got in because I only spent 6 weeks on it. And so here are some screenshots. There's only 2, but I'll pretend there's more. So these are just temporary for our demo for GDC. Yeah, for GDC, and we're planning to have a short demo for GDC, and right afterwards we can start doing some real pre-production production on the actual game. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. So are you still working on this alone, or?
I found a group of people at the EDC to work with.
Uh-huh.
So we have about 5 people, including me, that's currently working on this for our project this semester.
I see. So it's kind of still a school project.
Yeah, as a whole.
I see. So I guess I'll start to start the Q&A part or the discussion part. Wait a minute. With my notes. So how I think I'll ask this for Albert mainly, but if Josephine and Romain, you've got answers, you can do it as well. Can you talk a bit about like how did you came up with the original idea for your games?
Well, for my game, I don't have a really good story for it, but it was mainly just I was trying to solve a series of constraints. Is that I had about 2 weeks for my assignment, and I couldn't do art, and I couldn't do modeling, so it had to be something probably like I was thinking moving blocks in a physical space.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of a few different ways to do it, and then this just seemed like the best way. So
I see.
yeah.
So like even an idea as crazy as this it's you still got into like sort of competition with another person that developed actually almost the same game as 2 weeks, just in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. Well, when I thought of the idea, I started searching online because I was very surprised that nobody had done it before.
Uh-huh.
I thought at first like, oh, of course somebody must have done this idea before, but I couldn't find anything, which is why I made it in the first place.
But I mean, at the time, did you already know Perspective from the Japan?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've heard of Perspective.
So I think Perspective was in experimental gameplay workshop, like I think it's last year's EGW, right? I think it's last year.
Probably, yeah. Either last year or the year before, but pretty close.
Yeah. So you already saw the game, and when you come up with this forced perspective idea, do you think like maybe you guys, your games would be like a lot in common, or do you think like you can bring the mechanism into like sort of a different ways back then?
Huh. That's a good point. Actually, when I was thinking of this, I didn't even really think of Perspective the game because I don't know. To me, it's more like a platforming game, and the game I wanted to make was more like Portal, I guess, like a first-person shoot. Like, of course, there's first-person parts to Perspective, but it's part like first-person plus platforming. I guess. Yeah.
I see.
So I think Perspective kind of uses the forced perspective, but it also layers the 2D aspect to it.
I see.
So to me, it was pretty different.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that in the final game. I'm just curious about like when you started this, did you think that way? Yeah, so I think I get it. So Josephine, because I noticed that you didn't actually do like game design stuff before this project, right? Before Pico. This is like your first lead design game.
So from a professional standpoint, yes. So so I worked in advertising when I was at Google, and then I was making iPhone apps on the side, and then because of that experience, I thought, I really wanted to learn how to engage users. So then I went to get UTC, and actually, originally, I was more focused on creating stories. So that was just my main, at UTC, I try to get as much information and sort of experience as I could in telling stories through different formats. So transmedia, even traditional sort of animation storyboarding. And so we have, sort of main projects that we do at the master's program, and this game was not part of that at all. Even though we created it during when we were in school, it was a side project.
I see.
Just because we thought it'd be fun to tell a story in this way. And I wanted to jump back a little bit to what Albert was saying about, ideas that are very similar. That actually happened with us too. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game Gorogoa. So they're going to be at GDC this year. And so, and I actually met him. And and we had this discussion about how actually games that are very similar to each other in terms of mechanics, I see that as a good sign. This is very different from seeing a game that you like and then straight up copying it and lifting it wholesale, because neither Albertson nor our game was that, right? We didn't play a game and say, let's just copy it, and just swap out assets. We really just thought this was an interesting idea. And really with this type of collaboration, I think we then end up creating a genre of games, right? Because then, so the Gorogoa guy and I started talking about all these different types of games that have a similar pop-up moving window mechanic, and really they become a genre, except that in the game industry, there aren't predefined genres right now, because, we're currently doing that.
Yeah.
And so, and it proves that there's a market and there are players out there who are interested in this type of game. So I actually see that as a positive, because if you actually try to make a game that nobody's heard of and nobody is familiar with, it probably wouldn't get much traction.
Yeah, it's hard to sell. Yeah, it's hard to sell like a whole new idea to the audience.
Yeah, and I think the key would just be, yes, there's commonalities with other games developers, but what is it that makes your game uniquely you? And like, what do you bring to the table? Kind of like when you try out a recipe, right? Like, how do you add something extra so you make it your recipe and not just, you know, the thing you copy.
So you've been working on Pico like on and off, or like is a continuous effort?
So we all have full-time jobs.
Okay.
So this is really something we're trying to squeeze in at night on the weekends.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, let's move on to the next question, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I was wondering, since you had this idea at EDC already, what made you want to get full-time jobs and do this project on the side instead of doing this project as a full-time job? Besides security and then food and all that stuff.
Besides sustenance.
Yeah.
Well, we all got jobs before we actually submitted the game to Indicate. So we had kind of done the prototype at the end or during the summer after our graduation, and then so we made the prototype and we were happy with it. We got jobs, and we decided at some point to show it to Indicate. Which we didn't necessarily think about before, but then when we thought about it, we were like, that makes sense. And so we did it, and it worked out. So it's more of we really wanted to make a game that we would find fun, and regardless of what happens. And now, with everything that happens at Indicate, we think that other people would enjoy this game, and so we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, it wasn't. So we got jobs before we knew that the game would gain interest. Or we just sort of made it because we felt strongly enough that we wanted to make it, regardless of whether or not it takes off. And so I think, in a way, we didn't have to make that choice, right? Like, it wasn't that we created this game and then it got successful during school, and then we had to make the decision. Okay, do we go after full-time jobs, or do we sort of pursue this full-time after graduation? So,
I see.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, what semester did you two graduate from again?
May of 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder why I didn't get to see you. Oh, maybe I didn't go to the graduation. That was why. Okay, never mind. Moving on.
Yeah, but like, I mean, Josephine and Romain, you guys, before you go to EDC, you already like worked at other places, right? Or
Josephine did, but I didn't.
okay, I see. So, I can say that both your games are not only very interesting in design, but also like very interesting like technical wise. So, I was wondering if you can discuss the tech you used, or maybe share some very interesting or even funny or awkward bits when you were developing the game.
So I guess for us, people would get stuck in very weird places in the beginning. So he would get stuck in between windows and.
Sometimes you get stuck in the sky, because at the very beginning we made the window he was in movable, and so people would move. Would move it, and then he would stay in place, and so you would have to like move the window back under him to kind of. It was kind of silly. But I mean, it's like bugs that happen.
And we were thinking about actually using some of those bugs as actual game levels.
How about Albert?
Oh, so I guess my relationship with the tech is kind of a love-hate relationship as well. I used Unity 3D for my game engine, and it's like when you're using a game engine, but you're messing up its physics. It's really doesn't like that. So, for example, sometimes I would have a really long bug, and I would have like a week that there would just be this game-breaking bug that I couldn't solve, and it all turns out I just have to like check this little box in Unity, like change this number, like penetration distance and some quality settings to like 0.01, and then it would all be fixed. So I guess if you're doing a physics-based game with a game engine, you probably have to know it really well, or know someone that knows it really well, I guess. Or yeah, or you just keep on wondering why things are happening the way they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Romain, you implement the whole game like so Angel is a C++ framework or so.
Yep.
So like
it's pretty simple, but yeah.
Okay. So like did you like run into any significant like technical challenges? Because I figured because you are like talking to the OS directly.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. So we had to. So as I said, the Angel doesn't support multiple windows, but is using a open source library that does it. So I had to go in and just like modify it, just like rewire it so that it would accept multiple windows. There was also a bunch of the game engine itself that had to be rewritten to take those into account properly. And even then, like, there's still more challenges because, first of all, at the time of the prototype, I only did it for Windows. But there's also like Mac and Linux, of course. And there's a lot of performance issues also with like having to draw several windows every time. So I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made so far, and because like it's not something I initially thought I was going to be able to do well, but I ended up doing it in a way that I felt was very satisfying.
Okay.
But there's also a lot more left to do, so yeah.
All right. So I'll try to like open the Q&A to all our audience here. So I'll ask around and see if they got any questions, and if they ask in Chinese, I can just translate them. All right. So I'm going to talk in Chinese a bit from now. 那就是刚刚看到我们就是游戏的介绍，还有他们讨论一些他们自己在设计游戏上的一些想法之后，不知道大家有没有什么问题想要问他们？就如果大家有任何问题的话，就是欢迎随时提出来。那我可以直接用英文讲，帮你讲这样子。对，有问题尽量问啊。然后他们就是两个开发者也是，就是这么难得来见到面，他们自己都会互相一直问问题。那我想说，我们通过他们，我们也是机会更难得。看有没有什么问题想要问的。好，
我想要，因为接触过很多开发者，我想要问他们的是，就是说，要思考一个新的游戏机制，其实是一件很难的事情。那他们通常是透过怎么样的一个，他们有透过一个有系统的方式去思考到这样的一个东西吗？还是说他们有什么诀窍可以分享
Okay, so we got a question here, and I'll translate it. So, an audience want to know that when you guys are doing like this mostly innovative or maybe even kind of weird game design, and it's pretty hard to like come up anything like weird or anything innovative these days because there are so many games out there. So do you have a systematic way, or maybe there's any methods when you're trying to do brainstorming or come up with ideas? Can you share that bit for us?
So, I think for us, it was more of a, let's think about something that is not fun and try to make it into a game. So we had the pop-up thing, which was a thing that like everybody universally hates. I mean, at this point, I think I'm going to assume that like whenever your browser opens a window that says "you win," you're like, no, I know. And so we really wanted to use that bad experience to turn it around, and we thought that was what was going to be good about the game. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of something. But on the topic of it's hard to come up with anything innovative, I think since we have technology that's always changing, and like now we have mobile phones, and like we have even new technologies coming on those mobile phones, and with every new technology, I feel like there is always a way to kind of turn them around and use them. And so I think it's just hard to come up with ideas in the technology that we think we can use, but if we open up to all the technology that is constantly coming, I'm sure there's always going to be more ideas to be found, more clever stuff to do.
Yeah. So, Albert, do you have anything to add?
Okay. I think when you're trying to think of an interesting idea, a lot of times you probably start with a bunch of constraints. And since these constraints are a bit weird by themselves, whatever you come up with is also a bit weird. And if nobody started with these constraints, they'll probably not end up with what you have in the end. Is one way to look at it. And
it's sort of like what we do in game jams.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, like a ton of innovative games come out of game jams. And another thing is that I'm always surprised when people kind of use the same mechanic but in a different way, and that leads me to think that there's actually a lot of space in the area of games that we haven't discovered yet. For example, let's just say, for example, the mechanic of turning back time, right? Let's say Prince of Persia, Sands of Time used that mechanic, but then again, you have Braid, which came a few years later, which used that mechanic even better, and it was even 2D. Like you think, 3D should always be better, but somehow, by giving you more freedom in 2D, it was the same mechanic, but it was just better. And there's also this other game I saw a few years back, where basically it's a first person, and you can take a snapshot of that period of time, and then you can go through it, and then it would be that time. I don't know how to explain it. It's weird. Yeah, so like just with this mechanic of turning back time, there's so many different ways you can change it. So yeah, I think I don't know, just good luck.
Yeah, we all need that. 对，我就是稍微还是解释一下，就是其中一个是讲说，就是 Romain 他讲说，就是也许你先想一个大家都不喜欢、讨厌的 idea 或议题，然后想办法把那东西做到，就是你会觉得它好玩。对，然后 Albert 是觉得说，就一方面是很多机制是可以重复利用，只是看你怎么重新去组织这件事情。对，然后再来就是先设定一个很明显的限制，其实可能有时候还是蛮重要的。对，譬如说我一定希望这个游戏是有时间控制时间的机制，或是我一定希望这个游戏它跟某一个主题相关，甚至只是跟某一个名词相关之类的。对，这些可能都是不错的想法。对，那不晓得还没有其他人有问题，任何想问的都可以。
他刚刚有讲到，就是说创新比那个
比好玩
还要重要。那对他会不会担心说，将来比如说真的是想要商业化的时候，反而会遇到一些困难？
So Albert talked in his slides that he said maybe innovative is like more important than fun or polish. So, do you think this may like have negative outcomes for you when you try to commercialize the game or try to actually make it the game into an actual commercial product?
Yeah, there's the way I see it is if you're what's a weird question? Because if you're innovative, you can get a lot of attention just for being innovative and nothing else. So in a way, even if you want to, sell the game, you could probably sell a lot, even if it's a bad game, just by being innovative. But I think my point was that even if you have a very polished game, there's a huge market with a lot of polished games. Like if you go on Steam or any mobile, app store, there's thousands and thousands of really polished games. But part of the reason that they don't do that well commercially is because they're not that different from one another. It's how I feel. Because, everybody's time is limited, and then let's say they're only going to play 10 games a year, a month. I probably just pick the ones I'm most interested in rather than like a really good, platformer game that I might have played something like that before. So I do think innovation helps with commercialization, but the hard part is also actually polishing and creating the game afterwards. For example, one problem we're having right now is in terms of theming and narrative is because we didn't have that vision of the game before. We only had the mechanic, and to wrap all that around our current puzzles is a bit more difficult than we thought it would be. But still, like the innovation and then some of the attention helps with things.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. That's how I feel.
So, do Josephine or Romain have anything to add on the question? OK， 对啊，就是他基本上刚才还是说，就是你的，就是主要是看你怎么对于你自己的游戏做定位嘛，因为市场上现在已经有太多就是实际上真的很好玩，或者是它看起来确实是很精致、很就是打磨过的游戏这样子。对，但是因为在市场上这种游戏的比例目前来说是比较高的，相对是高很多。那你不如去想办法去做一个看起来很怪，或者是至少第一眼看起来，他虽然可能觉得这个东西不会很精致，可是他只要一看到那个 concept， 他就会觉得，这个东西他之前没有看过，这样子反而还更容易吸引人注意。那你如果一开始有抓住人家的注意力的话，你之后就是其实做宣传或是做商业化什么东西，应该都相对更容易才对。那还有下一个问题吗 ？Yeah.
Oh, I just want to follow up with something that.
Yeah.
So one of the professors at EDC, Jesse Show, who wrote Art of Game Design, he said that, I'm not sure if this is true, but he just said it. So what he said was, if you capture someone's attention at the beginning with your game, later on, even if they don't see it for a long while, they'll still remember that moment when they were amazed with your game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very powerful. So yeah, basically, yeah, if you get their attention, you get their attention. It's kind of what he was saying.
I see.
In a sense.
And so I just wanted to add to that a little bit. So from our perspective, since we were looking at ads, right? And that's what advertisements do.
Yeah.
They capture your attention in a short span, and they try to get some message across it. So I'm agreeing with Albert. Yeah.
Yeah. So first impression. 那还有没有下一个问题？任何想要 follow up 的，或者想要讨论的议题？有吗？ 暂时没有嘛？那我这边先再继续问我这边的问题。那大家可以先想一下。Yeah, so I'll let the audience think about their next question. So I'll ask mine. So for you guys, you kind of all made a lot of projects and games in schools. I mean, EDC have like a course that's just trying to have you make projects, right? And like, did you have any game IP holding issues like for schools? Like, do you when you want to commercialize some projects that you made in school, do you have any difficulties with that?
That's a good question. Actually, for most cases at CMU, because it's just CMU's policy is they let you keep all the IP.
Mm-hmm.
The only cases when that's not true is when you have like a client and you're under some non-disclosure agreement with somebody.
I see.
Or you're using somebody else's IP to make your game.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, you probably can't keep your IP. But I guess this is very different from schools like DigiPen, I think DigiPen doesn't let their students explicitly keep their IP.
Yeah.
For sure. But the reason I think they do have reason for that is that they don't want. I think their words were they don't want people to really fight over the IP after they get out of school.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't know how strict they are on the IP thing because there are some games like what is that the car racing game thing that they're making a second game, so. What?
Nine.
Sorry, I said Need for Speed. I don't know. I was kidding.
It's something Rush, right? Some night.
Oh yeah. Nitronic Rush.
Yeah, Nitronic Rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Albert covered it from the CMU perspective, but just a note on the group part of it though. So basically, if you're working with a group, every member of the team basically owns a part of that IP.
Yeah.
So unless you've explicitly said it beforehand, which would be, in my experience, a little bit weird, right? Like you don't go into a team thinking that, oh, right in the beginning, I'm gonna make you guys all sign papers. But just be aware that when you're working in a team, everybody owns it, and afterwards they can do whatever they want with that portion of it. So, for instance, if 5 people are working on a game and you end up disagreeing because it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Either you all agree not to work on the game anymore, but if 2 people, let's say from that group, want to go off, they can. And I'm speaking strictly from the United States perspective.
I see.
So they don't need the other group members' permission to sort of take that and sort of create. I'm not talking about selling it, but basically they can take that and they can expand upon it, and then once they expand upon it, I think there's some sort of percentage. Then they could actually sell that piece of it. Of course, if you want to keep your friends, you don't do that.
I see.
To be aware of.
Did you keep your friends?
I do keep my friends. So, but that's the thing. It's like the best case scenario is you get everybody still working on it, and a lot of things that actually have come out of the ETC don't make it past the student project. Not because of the client, but because not every team member wants to work on it, and everybody's just like, okay, so we'll just not work on it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try to ask the audience again. 所以还有人有想到有什么问题吗？
他们作品做到现在这个阶段，然后未来有考虑在手机平台推出。
Okay. So a question just come up is that do you have any plans to release maybe your project or games on mobile platforms in the future? I think Josephine already and Romain already talked that bit about it. But how about Albert? Do you have any?
Probably not. And just from like a technical perspective, the rescaling thing is kind of expensive. So I don't think most mobile devices will be able to run it, and if you have like nice graphics, probably won't.
Yeah.
So probably not.
I see. Yeah. So I don't know, Josephine. Like maybe you want to try the multiple device thing I just talked about.
Yeah, so that's right. So if we do end up going mobile, we would have to change the design. Like I think we would, instead of making fake pop-up windows in mobile, which would be, I think we would change the design.
Okay, sure. Yeah, actually because we actually have a person from Google Play right now in the audience, so he want to add something to the mobile thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Should I use the mic or not?
Yeah, just use the mic.
Hi. I don't
Can you hear him?
Not really.
My name is. Alright, I don't think the mic.
I think it was.
It was on. Also. Check.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah. So I work for Google Play Games, business development. So I'm currently I'm out of Mountain View, but I currently am in Taiwan because we're growing quite big here in terms of mobile, and really cool stuff that you guys are doing. We were just at Nordic Game Jam. We'll be at South by Southwest. We'll be at GDC, and we definitely appreciate like indie developers. And we work with everyone from Flappy Bird to Supercell. Right?
Oh, feedback.
And so the way I always kind of talk to indies and the way we approach it, and we realize that you guys are probably one of the most influential, right? I mean, people always look at the reports, right? They look at the money and they'll be like, okay, mobile is where it's at, and we have to look at all the analytics and the numbers, and they basically tell us the whole story. But I feel like that's only half of it. Like, it's important to look at that, but it's also really important to look at the innovation. And to Albert's point, I mean, I think he was really spot on you really have to get that first impression, right? It's very important. But I wouldn't discount mobile right now, given, like, to Albert's point, he was kind of saying, like, oh, the game is really heavy. But, I mean, the game is built in Unity, right? And Unity on mobile is pretty much the dominant platform these days, at least for gaming, right? It's like Coco's 2DX or gaming. And my counterpart, Tony, here is more on the developer relations side. He does a lot of more technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The next generation of NVIDIA chips will probably be, for mobile devices, will probably be 2/3 of an Xbox 360. And that's this year. So in terms of computing power, in terms of all that, yeah, Unity adds a lot of bloat, and that's something Unity needs to work on. I mean, I used to make Unity apps, and we could get them down to like less than 20. You just have to be like, when you commit art assets to Unity, just make sure you're not committing like 100 megabyte art assets. Yeah. And Unity has a lot of things to work on too, right? I mean, I remember I had one of my art guys work on. I used to run a game studio, and I remember I had one guy commit like, he worked like 3 days on a lawnmower for one of our games, but the only part of the lawnmower the player is gonna see is like the top part. But he made a Unity model so complex. I mean, he was like every little detail. I'm like, nobody's gonna see that, right? So as long as you can, when you can, like for Albert's game, like a lot of it is like, yeah, I mean, if you hide certain details and smaller art assets, it won't be as bad. So I would just say that if you really look at, I mean, if you look at mobile in general, I mean, you look at WhatsApp just being acquired, you look at a lot of those different things, it's like, that's really the platform that you want to be on in like for the next foreseeable future. I mean, I've worked with that game company, out of Santa Monica, right, and they did Journey, right, and a lot of great games, and even they got DICE Game of the Year, but it's really difficult, right? I mean, to make money through like PlayStation Network or Steam. Steam Greenlight is great, but I mean, if you look at Steam itself, the PC market's shrinking, so you're designing for a shrinking market. I think a lot of these things are great for like personal passion projects, but if you really, really want to build a sustainable business out of it, you really have to look at what's gonna matter a year or two down the road, and more or less where the audience is headed. And that's the thing, not everyone's gonna have a PC in the future, but everyone will have a mobile phone. And so, and even Android, you know, it's kind of crazy because we're growing so fast here. And I've been kind of keeping my eye on the Taiwan market for quite some time now, and it's the growth has been tremendous. It's just every couple months I come back, it's just there's more and more and more and more as the market seems to mature, right? And we have a lot of things we need to work on as Google Play, but we definitely like the way Taiwan's shaping up, and it's very it'll be very similar to Taiwan. And this is something that I don't want to leave this room, but the average revenue per paying user in Taiwan is higher than Korea for Google Play. So just keep that in mind, that like the users in Taiwan like to spend a lot of money.
Okay.
But yeah, so mobile I would definitely say is something that you should look at, but more of a scalable way, right? I mean, look at Flappy Bird, right? I mean, that's the thing, is like I see all these indie developers pour their heart and soul into making these amazingly deep and rich experiences that, for me, because I'm a very core gamer, right, I love to play things. Kerbal Space Program was like one of my favorite games for the longest time, like Portal, all those kind of things. And then you see something like Flappy Bird just come out, and you're just like what the hell, right? Sometimes, right? And then you play it, and you're like, it's pretty fun, right? But at the same time, like that would be like a lot of the things that I tell them. And to kind of close on that, it's like product is king, but like distribution will always be God in terms of entertainment. And as anything from like movies to music, and it works for games as well, where not necessarily the best game is always going to be the number one game, right? But
yeah.
The number one game becomes, I mean, they become like the winning game because they make all the money and then they hire all the best engineers. So
yeah. And so Albert and Josephine and Romain, did you get all that?
Yeah.
I hope.
Oh,
I should have yelled.
Okay.
I heard it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in short, like in market perspective and in technical perspective, smartphone is like maturing really fast right now. It's already really mature now. It's what Kevin basically saying is that it will get better, just better and better. Yeah, from his perspective. So does Albert have anything to answer to that?
I do think that's a very interesting point that has, makes a lot of true statements. But as some, of course, I'm not a professional in this area, but it seems to me that even though mobile is increasing really fast, PC doesn't really slow down that much. So it's kind of like, do you want to make X money, or do you want to make 2 times X money in a way? For example, some PC games like Anti-Chamber, sold 250 copies in a few months. No, I'm sorry, 250,000 copies in a few months. There's a lot of, to me, it seems like the mobile market and the PC market kind of are geared towards different games, almost in a way. There's also, like if you do PC, you can also port to, as really easily port to like Xbox and PlayStation for the next generation. And just seems like, different types of games. And one part, if I would want to go mobile or want to go, not mobile, I would guess that I would ask myself which types of game I wanted to make. And this actually one thing I wanted to ask Johnson is that what is the PC market in Taiwan? Like, how does that look like compared to the mobile market?
Oh well, how do I respond to that? Well, I'm not a market expert per se. I mean, a lot of people in this room actually is like more senior than me, so I'm probably the wrong guy you're asking here. But I mean, PC games in Taiwan is not doing very good. Yeah, it's definitely true. Yeah, maybe you will play games from EA, from big publishers and big studios, and like you'll play a lot of what's that called? Just Dota-like or LOL-like games. Yeah, the PC market is still pretty good for that, or maybe some other forms of real-time strategy games. Yeah, so I mean the hardcore gamers in Taiwan play that, but in terms of indie games, or maybe more lightweight games, I mean a lot of people will, because we also have a journalist in the media in Taiwan right here in the audience. You can ask him. I mean a lot of people will say, okay, this game looks like an ES game. So why do I want to pay it for like $5 or maybe $10 on PC when I can play similar things on mobile market for like $1 or even free to play? So I mean this situation is global, but I think in Asia it's particularly more prominent. Yeah, this is my point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with Albert that the two platforms are, at least right now, oriented towards different kinds of gamers, and that's one other thing is one other constraint is that the tech is just different, right? Like, so not talking about graphics, because like obviously this changes very fast, but being restricted to a touch input sometimes. It's really depending on the kind of games, but if you're trying to come up with a clever mechanic, or if you have a controller that you want to use or something that you want to plug in, and that's at this point that's not really available for mobile devices. Like there are definitely some kind of games that you're not going to be able to release on mobile platforms, and that's like one of the constraints you have to deal with. But yeah.
Oh, also I just remembered one thing is that a few months ago I was working on a Unity project for the Ouya, which is like an Android device, and then we found out that to build to Android in Unity, it doesn't have shadows for some reason. Like, I don't know. So I think for the market to kind of move to mobile space, it might take a few more years in terms of for tech to catch up. And then, yeah, and then it could really be really interesting once that happens.
有什么要注意加的吗？
就是 PC 游戏在台湾啊，其实它的销路是有很多原因造成的。第一可能是 Freemium 游戏的流行，因为 Freemium 游戏的流行导致说消费者他不肯付钱去买要付费的单机游戏。但其实像他们做的这种游戏，其实是很难用免费自然引入。对，那再来就是说，台湾的市场其实就我接触过的很多厂商，他们今年的策略都是大幅缩减 PC 那边的开发端，然后全面转移到手机这边。那加上台湾市场其实，在 Google Play 零售榜其实是第6名，所以造成说很多厂商一窝蜂的往这个市场去开发游戏。所以就目前台湾的市场来说 ，PC 的游戏的确是大幅在下降，产出的量，不管是产出的量还是玩的人。那国外说可能没有那么明显，不过在台湾是这样子。
Yeah, Albert, so the problem in Taiwan is that did you get that?
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that I think it's not only in Taiwan, it's in most Asia regions that yeah, it's basically what he said. It's we play more freemium games, generally speaking, Yeah, so like a lot of big companies and studios are pouring their resources into making mobile and freemium games. Yeah, and the PC market is because a lot of people are like, well, they will talk about freemium games, free-to-play games, and mobile games. So like the contractions, the attentions PC games will get, like in these regions, like is definitely like worse than before. Yeah, so I mean we have like different cultures, we have different play styles in terms of like you know, the US players or Europe players and what Japanese players or Taiwanese players or Chinese players that want to play. They have like different preferences.
Yeah. What I'm really excited about is League of Legends on mobile devices.
Yeah. 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 So, 我们还有，哎，好，有网络上来的问题。
对，他们说，如果他们想到一个想法，会给自己多少时间把它做成 prototype， 然后以及什么时候会明确知道这个想法是可行的，然后才真正花时间把它做出来。
Okay. So, because we are also broadcasting right now on our channel, so audience from the broadcasting channel ask the questions. He want to know that when you are brainstorming for some ideas or you are trying to make some ideas into a prototype, like how long will actually you try to prototype that, and when will you know the idea or the prototype works or not? Yeah. From your experience.
So for us, we didn't actually know that it was going to work until we had people outside of the team play it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically our main pulse. Just play testing, because you know everything's sort of in theory until you actually get into the hands of people who have no context really of what you're trying to do. And it's hard, right? Like if they don't get it, it's, you know, it hurts. But, yeah, I mean, you know, for brainstorming, I feel like it's best to time box it, because you can brainstorm forever.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but at some point you need to draw that line, right? You need to draw that constraint. Like, having deadlines always help.
Yeah. So, like, how long did you actually spend on Pico's prototype, and that you think it's okay? This is going to be fun now, or like how long did you get your prototype out there for people to play?
So for the initial brainstorming, I think it took about 2 weeks. If I remember correctly.
And we locked ourselves in a room with
paper.
With notepad, Post-it.
Yeah.
And did it until we like got hungry.
I see.
But that's a good way, right? Because then it's not free form. It's like we're going into this room. We're not leaving until we get somewhere.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. So just for the initial idea, it took that amount of time, and then we had the level design also that we tried to do together at the beginning, just to make sure we were all on board with the same thing. And then like in the end, it's just at some point you decide that okay, now it's good enough and we can show it to people. And so for the actual prototype itself, it took about 3 to 4 months, I think, to make.
Yeah, but like you were working at like part-time, right?
Yeah.
So how about
yeah, I definitely agree with Josephine saying that you do have to show it to people first before you know it really works. But another way to look at it is, you know, what does working really mean? Like right now, we're still, not sure about, if this is the best idea ever. But because at some point you're building one prototype and then you finish it, it kind of works, it's kind of buggy, and then you do another one that's even better, and then you do another one that's even better, and each time through iteration you're more sure about your final product. But I guess you're never sure if it will completely work until at the end of the day, you shipped it, because a lot of games have been just cut off like a few days before because it didn't work,
Yeah.
So, good luck.
OK。对，那对就是基本上，他们觉得说，在想 idea 本身需要花很大的精力去集中，你不能就是发散性的去想，一定要，所以算有压力的去讨论 idea。但是如果你做 prototype 的话 ，prototype 的重点是要尽早让路人玩，朋友也好或不认识的人也好，就是要尽早让不认识的人玩。那你看到别人玩的反应之后，你才能真的知道说这个 prototype 是有效还是没有效，或是好玩还不好玩。那不一定花多久时间。那你能越早把 prototype 丢出去，应该是理论上是越好的。那不知道还有没有其他的问题？对，因为就是如果没有其他问题的话，我们时间其实刚好也差不多，现在是中午12点。Yeah, because we are right at noon in Taiwan here, so I'm just trying to ask if they got any like questions left. So if they don't come up another questions in a few seconds, I'll close the Q&A part.
Okay, no pressure.
对，就是如果没有什么问题的话，那我们今天跟2位开发者的交流大概就是到这边。对，确定没有哦？好，那应该有少数的人可以透过我的镜头，可以跟他们挥个手嘛。Yeah, because I think we're at noon. Yeah, we're at noon here, and people have to go to lunch. And I think the Q&A part is more or less finished.
Okay.
在台湾那边天气今天是怎样？
台湾这边现在天气很好，今天刚好很好。
Ask about the weather.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. And
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think we should do this more often in the future, and yeah, all in all, thank you again. So how about some applause? 一人掌声。